challenges, ensuring that nations work together to protect the planet for future generations. Diplomacy also helps mediate conflict over resources like water, forests, and fisheries that often transcend national borders by promoting peaceful cooperation. Another role of environmental diplomacy is facilitation of transfer of technology and financial resources from developed countries who often have more resources and advanced technologies for environmental protection to developing countries through capacity building and enable address the challenges. That is a problem now also we are facing. It is getting reduced and reduced, giving also a wake-up call for Africa to do it on our own. I want you to clap on this. I think we don't have to depend. Okay, when they come, okay, we will receive. But let's remind ourselves that things are not going to be like yesterday. I don't want to brag. For example, Eritrea, we live on our own. We don't take money from the World Bank. We don't take money from the IMF. We don't take money. We have never been taking money from the US aid since 2005. So nobody is getting away or getting out from his job in Eritrea because of this USAID something. I don't want to bring more politics. Environmental diplomacy also addresses the economic and social dimensions of environmental issues, ensuring that policies are equitable and consider the needs of vulnerable population. Furthermore, environmental diplomacy is essential for negotiating and implementing international environmental agreements that sets global standards and commitments for environmental protection. Such agreements include the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, the Convention on Biological Diversity, and the Montreal Protocol on Sustainable that deplete the ozone layer. Diplomatic efforts raise global awareness about environmental issues and advocate for stronger action. International conferences and summits such as the United Nations Climate Change Conferences, COP, provide platforms for this advocacy. It is in such occasions that and platforms that ideas and solutions come forward for adoption and execution. Being the headquarters of the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, and having successfully hosted major environmental conferences, including the African Climate Summit in September 2023, Kenya has shown its dedication towards this noble agenda by engaging relevant authorities on this matter consistently. Based on the experience and expertise acquired from such conferences, I would like to urge the entire diplomatic community in Kenya to use this opportunity to come out with a fundamental roadmap that leads to a solid path for a global environmental solution. I further extend my best wishes to the organizers and all participants of this symposium a successful outcome. Thank you.
In his past life, Ambassador Bayana Rusum was a medical doctor. So you can see that his scalpel of analysis cuts deep on very difficult matters. Clarity call for self-sufficiency, I think, is important. But on matters climate and environment, I think it's inevitable that we work together. I wish to submit Ambassador Bayana Russo. Excellency, it's now my pleasure to welcome my brother, Dr. Engineer Festus Ngano, to share a few thoughts with us. Welcome. Let's put our hands together.
Thank you so much, my brother Dr. Korir, for inviting me. The Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, His Excellency Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, my colleague Principal Secretary, State Department of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Singoe, the Chancellors, and the Chairman of the University Council of Nairobi, all members of the Diplomatic Corps led by the Ambassador of the State of Eritrea to Kenya and the Dean of Diplomatic Corps, distinguished government representatives, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Your Excellency, allow me to pass apologies from my Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Duale, who was supposed to be the one making this statement, but he has sent me to do so. But before I read this statement, Your Excellency, allow me to just appreciate the University of Nairobi. This is nostalgic for me. I have been a student here all through my academic journey. And Your Excellency, in giving back to the society, they asked me to be crossing some corridors to look at some of the students in the master's classes of engineering. So I do so gladly with no pay. So I'm glad to be supervising some master students in engineering and really proudly an alumni of the University of Nairobi. Your Excellency, this is from the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, which is the technical arm, as my colleague PS Foreign Affairs does the diplomacy, and your ministry, we come in to provide technical, and you see for technical guys, we just say as it is, and then we now get the diplomatic guys to make sure things go through in the negotiations. So we tag along together with the ministry, and we are proud that we are hinged at the hip. There is no negotiations, whether INC, UNCCD, CBD, or any other conversation. And PS, you are aware, we are supposed to be looking at INC 5.2 together with Inga at the UNEP, and therefore will be gladly providing the technical support that is required. Today we come together in this symposium to share information and knowledge that is key to address critical environmental issues facing our globe, including the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution that threatens our collective future, underscoring the need for urgent climate action. Ladies and gentlemen, despite these challenges, Kenya remains a beacon of hope within our region. We are playing an active role in climate action, including hosting the inaugural Africa Climate Summit in September of 2023. And together with Ambassador Ale and PS Korir, we are hoping that we can be able to pull out the second one, and we are looking forward to the same. Further, Kenya is a focal advocate for the reform on multilateral development banks, MDBs, to restructure climate finance to respond to the needs of African nations which are disproportionately affected by climate change. Kenya's leadership as climate champion, with His Excellency the President as the chair of CAHOS, and Kenya as the chair of the African Group of Negotiators, of course chaired by Ambassador Ali, ensures that the African voice is heard in global climate negotiations. Your Excellency, our leadership within the region is also evidenced by our ambitious national climate targets, which I am happy to note that we are on track to achieve. For instance, we have achieved 93% renewable electricity in our grid, and we are aiming for 100% renewable electricity by 2030. Further, our National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan NBSAP underscores our commitment to halting biodiversity loss while ensuring sustainable resource use. Ladies and gentlemen, while pollution remains a significant challenge, Kenya has put in place the relevant policies to move the country from linear model of waste management to circular economy through the sustainable waste management policy and act as the MCA regulations on waste extended producer responsibility, the EPR regulations, the management and control of plastic packaging materials regulations, among others. However, a lot still needs to be done, and collaborative efforts are essential to tackle pollution at the regional and global levels. Kenya is also implementing an ambitious restoration program, and through the National Landscape and Restoration Strategy, we aim to grow 15 billion trees, thereby restoring 10.6 million hectares of our land by 2032. We have also initiated the second phase of the Land Degradation Neutrality Target Setting, the LDN TSP 2.0, to restore degraded landscapes and cap desertification. These aligns with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, particularly SDG number 13 on climate action and SDG number 15 on life on land, and in Kenya, a global recognition as a champion of sustainability and climate action. Your Excellency, Kenya has established itself as a key player in environmental diplomacy, which is a top priority in Kenya's foreign policy, leveraging its natural resources, biodiversity, and commitment to sustainable development to influence global environmental policies. As the host of the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP, and the UN Habitat Headquarters in Nairobi, Kenya serves as a global hub for environmental discussions and as the environmental capital. Kenya is also the host of the UN Environment Assembly, UNEA, and we look forward to hosting UNEA from 8 to 12th of December, or should I say to 13th of December at UNEP, under the theme Advancing Sustainable Solutions for a Resilient Planet. Ladies and gentlemen, tackling the triple planetary crisis therefore demands inclusive collaborative diplomacy. As Nobel Prize laureate Wangari Maathai said, you can do it alone. Participation in multilateral agreements such as the three Rio Conventions of the CBD, the UNFCCC, and the UNCCD, and the Chemical Conventions of Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm, and the Minamata Conventions, including the ongoing negotiations for a global plastics treaty and a science policy panel on chemicals and waste, displays a proactive position in developing global environmental policies and post-diplomatic relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, the launch of the book, 60 Years of Kenya's Environmental Diplomacy, is evidence of our accomplishment and dedication to sustainable development. The publication describes our path, pointing out significant events and difficulties while opening the door for other similar initiatives. And therefore, I wish to sincerely thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and to thank you, Your Excellency, for this critical inaugural publication, and we look forward to further publications in the future. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, while the global environmental challenges are daunting, we have the tools to take meaningful action. We must therefore continue to strengthen our regional and global partnerships while honoring our global environmental commitments for the benefit of the environment and the present and future generations. I wish you fruitful discussions and looking forward to stronger collaborations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. That's good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together again for engineer. Again. So a medical doctor, an engineer, these scientists have spoken fairly convincingly about the reality of what we are dealing with facts, with scientific evidence. But perhaps it's time to listen to an economist who will tell us where we might be able to get the money to take us through this crisis that we face. But ladies and gentlemen, it gives me deepest pleasure to welcome to the stage our chief guest, the Honorable Dr. Musalia Mudavadi, the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. Let's put our hands together for the peace, yes.
A very good melody there. All right, the chairman of the council, Professor Amkoa Anangwe, Vice Chancellor, represented by Professor Kerubo, the Principal Secretary, Dr. Singoe, Principal Secretary, Engineer Ngeno, the Ambassador of the State of Eritrea and Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, Ambassador Bayene Rusom, the Regional Representative of the UN Habitat and Africa Regional Office, Mr. Omar Saila, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, the academic and the University of Nairobi fraternity, civil society representatives and non-governmental organizations, the Special Envoy, Dr. Ali, Environmental Envoy, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good people, good morning. It is a great honor to give a keynote address at this groundbreaking Nairobi Environmental Diplomacy Symposium. This symposium is a first of its kind, bringing together rich expertise from across a spectrum of stakeholders. This symposium is a game changer. It explores critical environmental matters that are timely and much needed, including creating public awareness on the key global engagements in environmental diplomacy and sustainable development. It will review the outcomes of the latest environmental conferences, taking a proactive stance of providing information on the Pact of the Future and the 7th session of the Environmental Assembly, UNEA 7, scheduled to take place at the UNEP headquarters in Nairobi later this year, as you have heard from previous speakers. The strong presence of leading players in environmental diplomacy here today is a testimony to the timeliness and significance of this symposium. This is an affirmation of our unwavering commitment to the environmental agenda and momentum. Nairobi is a renowned citadel of environmental diplomacy, particularly due to its position as a home to the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP, and UN Habitat. The city also hosts a robust presence of the diplomatic, scientific, academic, and civil society community active in the field of environment. Accordingly, I acknowledge with thanks the strong presence of various presidencies of COPs and other notable environmental diplomacy leadership here represented by their embassies in Kenya. These missions were instrumental in making the organization of this inaugural symposium a success. There is need to tap into the full potential of the large presence of these organizations to provide global leadership on environmental matters. Therefore, this symposium will not be an end in itself. It is the beginning of a series of robust symposia on environmental matters that will be held after every 4 to 6 months here in Nairobi. It is a long-held principle that as humans engage in development and advancement of their standards of living, they should not do this at the expense of the environment. Here, we all remember the compelling theme, making peace with nature, during the COP16, to the Rio Conventions of Biological Diversity held in Colombia. Indeed, the global economy also expanded, becoming more integrated and creating new frontiers for investment, jobs, and wealth. Technological advancement and innovation are now making life more convenient and livable by unleashing new possibilities in areas previously unimagined. However, these rapid development programs have also come with some costs to the environment and the society. Global warming is at its all-time high, with the World Meteorological Organization cautioning that 2024 recorded 1.55 degrees Celsius, the highest average global temperature increase since pre-industrial time. Still, however, negotiations under climate change are fraught with several challenges. Many states still prioritize economic growth over environmental sustainability, and the incremental cost of transitioning to a low-carbon development pathway is a matter of great concern. The current nationally determined contributions targets are insufficient to keep the global temperature rise below the 1.5 degree Celsius in line with the Paris Agreement. Getting adaptation on track is needed, and so is the implementation of the agreement secured on carbon markets. The global biodiversity is experiencing massive decline due to habitat destruction, invasive species, overexploitation, pollution, and climate change. Consequently, since the 1970s, the animal populations have dropped by up to 68%. The latest report of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystems Services indicates that about 1 million species are currently threatened with extinction. Biodiversity loss is upsetting the natural balance, with the possibility of causing irreversible consequences detrimental to all forms of life. The world must take corrective actions, without which a catastrophic sixth mass extinction event could occur in the not too distant future. Endemic and cyclic environmental risks, such as land degradation, desertification, and drought, are getting worse. Up to 40% of the world's land is now degraded, directly impacting 3.2 billion people. Droughts have increased in frequency and intensity by 29% since 2000. It is projected that by 2050, 3/4 of the global population could be affected by meteorological, agricultural, and hydrological and socioeconomic droughts. The world should raise its ambition and accelerate restoration of degraded lands to achieve land degradation neutrality by 2030. We should restore soil health and scale up nature-positive food production. This is more important for our continent, where agriculture continues to be the backbone and the command factor of most African economies. The world needs suitable policy options for land restoration, drought resilience, and green transition through people-centered approaches that address all facets of drought issues. The global community should develop a drought protocol to complement climate and biodiversity solutions. Pollution and wastes remain a serious problem. An estimated 7 billion tons of plastic waste is circulating in the environment, yet the world continues to produce over 460 million metric tons of plastics each year. Under a business-as-usual scenario, this is projected to generate plastic waste of between 23 to 37 million metric tons by 2040. I recognize the ongoing efforts and the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee established by UNEA Resolution 514 to develop an international legally binding instrument to end plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. There is no doubt that the global community has recognized this ballooning challenge and is undertaking various actions to promote circularity and, in some cases, ban of single-use plastics like we have done in Kenya. I urge all of us to work together to galvanize sufficient momentum needed to achieve consensus on the most sensitive issues. Ladies and gentlemen, environmental challenges continue to pose dire consequences on life and sustainable development. They deter sustainable economic growth and development. The various environmental conferences held last year and many more scheduled this year underscore the global interests and desire to address these challenges in an effective and timely manner. There is urgent need to continue mobilizing all stakeholders to address climate change, biodiversity loss, land degradation, desertification, and drought, as well as to end plastic pollution. Some of the significant challenges include weak political, economic interests that override social and environmental protection, technological limitations, and unstable international cooperation informed by geopolitical and geoeconomic tensions, as well as differing national interests. Therefore, today's all-inclusive platform aims to review the major outcomes of the environmental meetings held last year, facilitate free exchange of ideas, and offer suggestions on how the world should proceed for positive impact. I therefore commend the State Department for Foreign Affairs, led by P.S. Singoi, the Kenya Foreign Service Academy, and the University of Nairobi, and most importantly, the Stockholm Environment Institute Africa Center, for conceiving and executing this wonderful idea. And definitely, I will not forget the Ministry of Environment. Finally, I would like to crown it all by launching a legacy publication on Kenya's environmental diplomacy over the last 60 years of independence. This book has benefited immensely from a diverse range of authors and tells different stories of Kenya's engagement on the international environmental space. I wish to thank all the authors that responded to the call for the manuscripts. I thank you. Mr. P.S. Singoi, you made me feel guilty when I came up here, when you said that the economists are culprits. And the problem is that I'm both an economist and a politician. So these two seem to have a problem in coming in one bundle and creating a lot of problems all over. But however, maybe there are some good things I can share with the members here. First, let me pick up on the issue of resource mobilization. let me take this opportunity to make it official. You will recall that last year, President Ruto hosted, in conjunction with the World Bank, the IDA 21 replenishment conference here in Nairobi, where several heads of state, including the current AUC, African Union chairman, the president of Mauritania. Ladies and gentlemen, that effort, that convention was able to rally, which has now become official from the World Bank, an excess of $100 billion as the IDA 21 replenishment to help support the IDA recipient countries, which are close to 75 or slightly more globally. And this perhaps becomes a very good forum so that the conversations that you come up with can help in enriching the use of those resources so that they are directed to environment-friendly programs in all these 75 countries. I think that is a very, very significant development. And I would really want to urge all of us to see the significance of having a very robust diplomatic initiative and engagement with other countries, because it is through that kind of arrangement that Kenya's leadership, in conjunction with other partners and friendly countries, have able to rally the global community to raise these resources. That is a very significant development. The other thing that I may want to perhaps just flag again very briefly is that as we talk of the environmental diplomacy, I also want to let this audience know that formally the Cabinet of Kenya has now approved the sessional paper on diplomacy and given the go-ahead for it to be tabled in Parliament, which will happen next week when Parliament reopens, so that it goes through the first reading, and then it will be available for further conversation and debate by a wider cross-section of the Kenyan people and our partners. This time, we are making it clear that diplomacy is not an exclusive club. We want diplomacy mashinani. We want the people to understand what is our policy across various issues, and we want them to engage so that it is no longer a mystery that diplomats are seen carrying a briefcase into a plane, and then they are seen coming back, and they are assumed that they were just having a cocktail somewhere. Let us share in reality what is all this diplomacy about. It's also important to note that for Kenya's purpose, our constitution recognizes diplomacy or the foreign aspect as one of the arms or the pillars under the national security architecture. And if you look at Article 240 of the Constitution, it is very specific that it falls within that category. So Cabinet has also corrected an anomaly which has been lingering for a long time, because for some reason the foreign agenda was being regarded as just a normal administrative affair. And now it sits with clarity in accordance with the Constitution where it should have been for a very long time. So I thought this comes to you so that even within the framework of debates, we now fall within the security sector working group for planning purposes. So that is what I wanted to tell you. There are other good things that we can do, and I want us to do together. I saw Joe Ageo here. I don't know that he's still within the room. He's somewhere. Yeah. And I was just talking about, as we reflect on the demise of the Aga Khan, and we express our condolences to the Ismailia community and to his family as well. One of the things that the Aga Khan was pushing for was to partner with the county government of Nairobi so that they can preserve, protect, and make the city park more friendly the way Karura Forest has been made through partnership with other people. Perhaps as a befitting tribute, as you could have this conversation around the environment, this is something that can be advanced so that we can live on positive ideas that were mooted but were not executed. We still have an opportunity to carry that forward. And perhaps this is a very good moment so that Joe Ageo can help in rallying this message through his media house to galvanize support for this very, very noble cause to improve one of our very, very good parks in Nairobi, make it better, make it user-friendly, give it greater security so that people can walk the way it is when you do walk in Karura Forest. And that is where you pay tribute to the Wangare Maathais of this world and other partners who have really supported that. We also want to see protection of the Ngong forests and other areas, our national park. We want to see in far-flung places the Maragoli Hills rehabilitated in Western Kenya. We sometimes also forget that there are some politicians who may have caused trouble, but in their own way they were interesting. There was Karaoke Chotara. If you went to Naivasha today, you'll not believe that we politicians, as much as we can be rabble-rousers, Karaoke Chotara actually spearheaded the greening of, when you drive down to Naivasha and you see all those trees, he was at the center of planting that. So there, even from politicians, some good things do emerge. Then you can go to an elder like Mulu Mutisia with President Moi, and there was the famous Munyonyoko wa Udongo, the building of gabions and helping to rehabilitate degraded land. There were initiatives that perhaps were ridiculed, even by maybe not exactly social media. It was not as robust then. But some of these initiatives were being ridiculed and so forth, but give it to them. As unschooled as some of them may have been, they were actually conscious that protecting the environment was absolutely essential. And we need to go take a step back and pick up from some of these areas and make sure that we really protect our environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to be here to make a few remarks, and I wish you success as you deliberate on this very important issue. Thank you.
Your Excellency, may I request you to stay on the podium, but let me suggest, sir, that even in the tension between politics or politicians and economists, I want to suggest that perhaps diplomacy can mediate that tension. Your Excellencies, we've entered a critical juncture, and because you've already given an endorsement to this, our inaugural publication that celebrates Kenya's 60 years in environmental diplomacy, Your Excellency, there's just a small ceremony that I invite you to lead us in, the ceremony of unveiling the dummy, even though the actual publications are in the room and will be circulated to all of us. Your Excellency, I must say that this publication would not have been possible without the generous support of the Stockholm Environmental Institute, and I want to acknowledge the work and the leadership of Dr. Osano and the Embassy of Sweden, with whom we have worked very, very closely. We look forward to working with them in the future. May I therefore invite Your Excellency to launch this publication. Let's put our hands together. Just press. Oh, wow. All right. Put our hands together. What's going on? It looks like a mystery box, but let's see. Perhaps we can unveil the curtains. You want this to be rolled forward or something? There you are. Yeah, maybe you just hold it. All right, there you go. There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, that marks the end of the first session, the high-level opening of this important seminar on the environment. It is now my pleasure to welcome the moderator to take it up from there. Thank you very much. Joel.